let's continue module 4 and the last chapter, chapter number 9, scalable, multi-threaded and data flow architectures. Okay, let's start scalable and multi-threaded concepts. Okay, in that the first concept is latency heading techniques. So what you mean by latency is a time delay when a memory is accessed. Okay, hello. So the time delay when a memory is accessed is called as latency. That means delay. So what happens when we are working on parallel or scalable systems is they used to share memory. Okay, so whenever they share a memory, so parallel and scalable systems they use shared memory. So that means whenever there will be some memory and there will be multiple processors, and assume presently data is handled by processor 2, means controlled by processor 2. So now processor 1 will request, so that time the data is busy with processor 2. Processor 1 has to wait for some time, so that is called as latency, and in operating system we used to call it as waiting time. Okay, so when processor need to wait for the data, and how to reduce that waiting time are the techniques what we are studying here. So what is the best method? We have to use a prefetching. Prefetching means, see, so when before the processor 1 actually needs a data D, try to fetch earlier, actual before start. Okay, means before the start of execution, try to fetch it earlier. Okay, sorry, it should be prefetching. Please make a change, it is prefetching. Prefetching. Okay, so fetch the data before it's really used. Okay, second technique we are using is coherent caches. Coherent means parallel caches. So there will be one cache and every processor give its own cache. Sorry, this is a shared memory, and here is one block of data. Let us take this color data. Okay, so coherent cache means for every processor there will be its own dedicated cache. Take this data and give a copy in every processor's local cache. So that is means coherent cache. So what is the advantage of coherent cache? So possibly miss will not happen. What is miss? Cache miss will not happen, or we can say the possibility of occurrence of cache miss is reduced. Okay, so that is second technique. Third technique, relaxed memory. Relaxed memory means allow usage of buffering and pipelining. Buffering means store a data for long time, so we will have separate buffer for every processor. So what every processor will do, it maintains a copy of data in its own buffer. So next is pipelining. So that means through different stages process the data and forward it, so that a processor will not find data miss possibility, and latency will be reduced. It will get the data for sure. Next, using multiple context support. See, all these three we have studied in our previous chapter, one or the another corner of the syllabus. So this is new. Using multiple context here, that means processor should switch from one context to another. Let me elaborate this. Okay, see here, there is one task 1. Generally we call it as context 1 and context 2. So let us assume one processor as P1. Presently processor 1 is executing context 1. So what happens in certain stage of execution is context 1 has a shortfall of data to complete its task. Immediately what it will do, the processor will cancels that execution or pauses the execution, and it will start execution of context 2. So context 2 will continue till either its completion, or it's a data shortfall, or its interrupt. So if not happens, so definitely it will continue its execution. If any interrupt occurs, then again processor will switch to third context C3. So it keeps same for all the time. So here when the processor will come back to context 1 is when it collects a data whatever is required to continue the execution. So these all are the techniques to reduce the latency, possible occurrence of latencies. Okay. Okay, next scalable coherent multiprocessors. So one of the diagram we have scalable coherent cache multiprocessors means, so here we can attach or detach any number of processors, that is meaning of scalable. Coherent means we will have their separate local cache. Okay, local cache among multiple processors. You can see each processor has their own cache, again processor, again cache. Okay, so make a group of some processors and call it as a cluster. Okay, same group of a processor and call it as a cluster. So now this all processors are communicating with memory as usual. Okay, so if you take one cluster, what will be there? Memory, sorry, there will be a processor, there will be a cache, there will be a buffer, write buffer, and secondary cache, which is more in size than primary cache. So continuously load and store of data will take place with the help of buffer. So here why it is scalable is we can create or destroy any of the clusters. Okay, why it is called a coherent is every processor has been given with a dedicated cache, and they are connected through some network where memory will be accessed directory method or remote access cache and some of the memory elements. See, every cluster is associated with memory for directory access and remote access. So all are interconnected through interconnection network. So here multiple processors, processor 1, 2, 3 in the name of different clusters are connected with each other to share a data. Okay, next one is shared virtual memory. Okay, here shared virtual memory means, as I mentioned here, clusters. So same way what we call it as each processor has node. Okay, cluster is only of processor and cache, but node means processor, data or cache as well as memory. So that we call it as node 0, node 1, so on up to node n. So if we take up one node, what will be there inside, how it works. Okay, so I think in our previous video we have studied how to convert a virtual address into physical address through page table and page offsets. Okay, please recall that concept. So here what happens, let us assume one of the external memory which is a shared virtual memory. It is inside a system. Since there are multiple computers, we call it as a multi-computers architecture or system. So what happens, this block of data which is requested by all the processors, a copy will be sent to all for their processor. So what each processor will feel, they feel like it's the data is dedicatedly given only for them, but really speaking it is a common copy given for all. So this is how shared virtual memory, we feel like it is a virtual, but it is shared among multiple processors. Okay, what are the some of the prefetching techniques? Okay, and what are the some subheadings? What do you mean by prefetching is predict possibly when the data is going to be required. So hope now the time is 10 o'clock and we are executing 25th instruction. Hope 27th instruction needs some data called BC, B and C data. So assuming they may start execution in next few seconds. So what happens, with assumption of that, try to fetch data now itself, have a copy of data, so that as soon as CPU starts execution, we can give or we can supply the data, so that execution will never suffers a delay. That is one of the method. Okay, so some types of we have to think about prefetching techniques, whether it is a binded or non-binded. So binded means, take example of array. Okay, generally what we call integer a of 10. Okay, so as soon as I get a in my execution line of a CPU, all the data from a of 0 to a of 9 will be loaded and considered. So that means what, all are binded together. We cannot only fetch prefetch, we cannot only prefetch a of 0 only. We can, as soon as I mention array name, all the data will be accessed, all the data of array will be accessed. So same is not correct when it is a non-binded data. Non-binded data means data will be scattered here and there in the memory. So to fetch every data we should use a pointer. So that time definitely latency will be more. So array means what, they will be continuously stored. If you get a first pointer, from there you can easily get a data. But if the data is scattered or stored here and there like a linked list, okay, that time we should have pointer for every node. So through that pointer only we have to access a data. So now one more prefetching technique is hardware control. As separate and dedicated hardware or some of the co-processors will be used to have the data address or to fetch a data address. So the work of these processors is to continuously fetch a data, but condition is they have to fetch before actual start of the work. So software, you all know PC. PC means program counter. It is used to fetch data which is fetch a instruction which is next executable. So it is, we call it as software controlled. Generally what happens, all programs are software controlled prefetch technique. Okay, defaultly it will be the fourth example. Okay, fourth technique of the prefetch. Okay, so next one we have scalable coherent interface. Okay, so that means we can connect any number of nodes or SCI interfaces to this interface, and we can connect nodes with each other. Just now I have mentioned you what do you mean by nodes: CPU, memory, and cache. Okay, so each node will have that much, and all the nodes are connected through scalable coherent interface network. Such small networks, what we call it as clusters, they are connected with each other using Warsaw model Europe bus. Warsaw model Europe bus. Okay, that is a basic architecture. There we will have one converter which converts address of a data from one node to another node connected to somewhere here. So you can assume like this: take same data, this architecture, and connect here. So you will come to know. So data from one node will forwarded to SCI, that is the interface. From there via node which is connected through bridge, converted to the required format and forwarded to Warsaw model Europe bus. From there again another side what will be there, converter, node, SCI, and nodes. So like that the data transfer will takes place. So how SCI is internally made up of? So what is purpose of SCI? It is to connect one node with another. What is general two approaches we have is, one is ring and one is crossbar. Ring means you can notice here how is the ring, like this. It started from some point. Okay, if starting point and end point are same, it is called as ring architecture. So crossbar means bidirectional. Okay, n cross n data transfer method. That means we will have n, if we have n nodes, they separate, they will have sending and receiving switch method here. So crossbar will be costlier but definitely effective than ring, and less time, means faster execution of the data transfer. What are the features of SCI? It is a low latency. Latency means time will reduce. Fully duplex, that means at a time two nodes can send as well as receive. Okay, and point to point, as I mentioned in a crossbar, they, for every computer or every node, between every two nodes there will be separate line for receive, separate line for receive and receive and send. So what happens, since there is a dedicated line, we can easily send and we can easily receive. between any two nodes. One thing is hardware is costlier, but data is very secure. See, the data is secure, also it is very speed, because we can send 1 gigabytes per link. We can send data. And I told SCI is a chained architecture, that means linked list architecture. See, there will be one controller who used to control all the nodes of the network. Okay, the network, see here, if it is a filled block, that means coherent. If it is empty block, non-coherent. See, now what happens, the controller will give one copy of a coherent block of data to first CPU. First CPU will share with the second, second will with the third, third will with the last, like that. It will is continuously shared. Why it is shared is, the concept itself is between shared coherence. Okay. Okay, next one we have is principles of multi-threading. Okay, so what you mean by multi-threading means, at a time multiple context should get executed, even though there is a single processor or multiple processors. If it is a multiple processors, try to allocate each thread to each processor. If we don't have multiple processors, then allocate multiple threads to same processor based upon their data availability to complete the execution. So let's take, I think you all remember your operating system diagram, where we have shown multiple thread like this: thread 1, thread 2, thread 3. There will be one common processor, you can even think common memory. So what happens, multi-threaded means all the threads will execute in a same processor with respect to the time, different time. So shifting one thread to another is context switch. So what are the this environment, we call it as multi-threaded architecture environment. So what are the important parameters we have to study whenever we wanted to explain multi-threaded architecture? Is latency, means how much time delay will be taken place when a processor switch from one thread to another thread. So this is very crucial, because what, see, time to execute a thread is 2 seconds, let us assume. Time to switch, if it is a 3 seconds, this concept is not useful. So context time should be very lesser, like 1 or half second, because actually we processor is not doing any work, any useful work when it is shifting or switching. Okay, so the latency should be very lesser. Number of threads is a second parameter. So of course it is good, we can have a high number of threads, but what is the problem having multiple threads at a time is, we should have the controller load increases. So it has to keep monitoring which thread will executes at which time. Okay, so controller workload increases. If controller is capable of handling, we can go for more number of threads, but minimal or nominal number of threads at a time is a better option compared to having less or very high number of threads. Okay, so I mentioned what is a burden we will get whenever we use to switch from one context to another context. Overhead means extra work, like, see, when thread 1 is paused to shift into thread 2, so some data we have to store it in stack. If that data is very high, so what happens, switching time will be more. Switching time, that is called interval between switches, will be more. If interval between switches will be more, what happens is, see, thread 1 related data is stored. So let's assume thread 2 started. So after just 2 works, again thread 1 wanted to execute. Again what we have to do, we have to take up or bring back all this data back to the cache of the processor. So this overhead is more. So that should not happen. We should think about overhead, then only we have to decide whether going with the high number of processors, high number of threads is good or not. So next one, as I mentioned, interval between switches, that means how much time it will take to switch from one thread to another thread. Generally what happens whenever we switch from one thread to another thread, first threads, some data is stored in the stack, processor will switch to second thread either completed or partially executed. When you need to come back to original thread, again store second thread's present result and fetch first thread earlier executed results and continue the execution. So this is how the execution makes delay. So that should be, these all are the important parameters we have to consider before we opt for multi-threading. So how they will look like multi-threading, the architectural environment. There are so many memory and processor. Okay, memory and processor. One processor, okay, will communicate with the memory, and memory will give you back the data to the processor. The time taken is called as latency. Okay, it should be very less. That means immediately it has to get a result. So let us assume, let us study few more important parameters here. Okay, see, these are policies, context switching policies. When context should switch means execution from one to another. See, 4 points I will explain later. I will go back to the diagram. Switch on cache miss. So see here, processor 1 and its cache, okay, processor 2 and its cache. So processor, there is one processor. So, okay, so what happens, this processor try to search a data here, it misses. So main processor, what it will do, sorry, it is a memory, it is also memory, it is a cache, which we can call it as shared memory. Okay, so fine, processor will try to execute some task 1 or a context 1. If data related to that is not found, so what it will do, it will not wait till thread 1 collects its expected or required data. Suddenly it will switch to the another task and it will try to continue its related data. If it is found, it will execute. That is called as switch because cache miss occurred. Now switch because of every load. So what happens, there will be one processor and a task, okay, task. So this processor executed a task and few of the data is loaded. So after loading, before start of actual execution, it can shift it to the another. So because load is completed, that means with respect to load, switch happens. Next is little more accuracy. See here, switch on every instruction. So one instruction in one task, switch to second, again execute one task or one instruction of the second task, again shift it to third, like that. So here what is one problem with this is continuously switch will happen for every instruction. It may be good whenever it is related to small quantity of task, but if the tasks are very high, like data copying, so we cannot expect outputs in short time. Okay, so to tune up this, so the problem whatever occurred, now new technique is block of instructions. Let's see, the tasks are divided into related instructions, or which we call it as block of instruction. So what happens, this processor executes this block of thread 1 or task 1, then it will shift into second, means second thread's next block. Okay, after this again it will execute to first thread second block, then it will execute second thread, second block. Okay, so then it will come back to first thread, third block, from there third block of second thread. So continuously it is just like managing all processors. So this technique we call it as round robin algorithm. Round robin algorithm. Okay, so now with this idea, let's go for the diagram. Okay, now task thread 1 and thread 2. Okay, so there are two threads. Thread 1 execution starts in the step 1. So suddenly what happens, thread 2 also started its execution. Thread 1 has overhead, that means extra work. So what the computer will do, or the processor will do, is it will pauses for some time. It will start execution of thread 2. Okay, thread 2. So thread 2 part of execution is completed. Again thread 1, the remaining part will start execution. So second part of thread 1 completes, then it will come back to second part of thread 2. Once thread 2 second part completes continuously, third part of thread 1, third part of thread 2, after that fourth part of thread 1 and fourth part of thread 2. Like that it continuously executes. Okay, see now, when a processor executing a task, it switches to another context. That time what we have to think is whether the cost of that switch is more or less. If it is more, neglect that switching. If it is less, then only consider the switching, and you can continue with that method. So what are the two more points we have to consider whenever we are deciding about a context switching is whether the jump between, sorry, the latency between two switches, is it possible to reduce? If yes, then we can use some of the techniques. So what are the techniques we have to use? I think we have discussed here. See, prefetching, coherent cache, relaxed memory, and multiple context support. So use any of the method and get a solution for reducing the latency. Hiding also is possible. Okay, so then after deciding one of the best method, we can continue with the switches. So where all we can continue, what are the effects of continuing the switches is the execution performance will be increased because latency time is decreased. How to calculate efficiency? Efficiency is given by busy time in terms of execution. Okay, busy means execution, total execution time whole divided by execution time plus switching time plus idle time. So what do you mean by switching time? The time taken to switch from one context to another context. So what do you mean by idle time? Sometimes the data is not available or not actually fetched during its execution. That time processor cannot do any of the task. Such time is called as idle time. Idle time means no work is done. Busy means work is continuously executing. Switching means shifting from one context to another context. So that is how we call efficiency. So how to find out a distributed caching? Sorry, all these problems what we got in terms of multi-threaded delay, latency and all, to avoid that we are using distributed cache. Distributed cache means every memory location is given with one of the owner is called as controller. So data sharing decisions will be done at a owner level, whether the data should be shared or exclusive. If it is shared means all processors can fetch data. If it is exclusive, only that processor can fetch a data. Okay, so here Distributed means a copy of data will be given for all the processors cache. So what they feel, they have been given with exclusive copy, but really a copy is given for all processors. So they keep calculations or execution of a work on that given data, and they update the result. See here, this one a diagram which you have studied in your operating system, multi-threads switching from one context to another context. Okay, so this is how each node is made up of. P indicates processor, directory, cache, memory. Processor, directory, cache and memory. Memory are subsections. Okay. Okay, so I already explained context switching policies. When to switch from one context to another context. They can switch whenever there is a cache miss. They can switch whenever for every load. Okay, every instruction switch is little lengthier. Okay, so here context switching takes place, but execution is not of good efficiency. And the last approach is block of instructions. As I mentioned, it is equal to round robin algorithm. Okay, so next one we have fine grain techniques. Okay, fine grain means what? Take a big problem here and divide into smallest size of the sub program like this, or subtasks. So now with respect to problem, this is a very small grain size. Grain size means smaller in capacity. So what is the advantage of this? Small tasks we can execute parallelly. So if we are able to execute if not all, at least few tasks parallelly somewhere here. Okay, so we can achieve or best efficiency or lesser time of execution. So in the first module we have studied this fine grain technique. Please recall the concept. So divide the task into smaller substeps or subtasks. Call each subtasks as fine grain and try to attain parallelism between such tasks, and that method is called as fine grain technique. So with help of fine grain technique, what we can do is latency analysis. So which subtask is dependent on another task, that we can identify, and if possible remove such of the dependency. If we remove such of the dependency, definitely latency is reduced. If latency is reduced, it increases the performance. Okay, so that finishes chapter number 9.